Hello, 11. Today we're looking at an inquiry. We're going to try and explain why Adolf Hitler became Chancellor, that means Prime Minister, of Germany on the 30th of January 1933. And it's quite complex. There are a number of factors that allow Hitler to come from virtually a nobody in 1923 to become the most powerful politician in Germany by 1933, a mere 10 years later. And this lesson is about looking at those. So on to the next slide. So historians have identified three central reasons or factors why Hitler is able to become Chancellor by 1933. The first factor is the failure of the Weimar Republic in dealing with the Depression meant that Germans lost faith in the Weimar Republic and indeed democracy itself. So Germans were looking for alternatives to democracy. They had become tired of democracy. To them, it had delivered only crisis after crisis, failure after failure. And as you can see from the graph, by 1929, 1930, 1931, 1932, Germany was in economic chaos with unemployment running at 6 million. The second factor is obviously Hitler, and the appeal of the Nazis made them the largest political party in Germany by 1933. They exploited the crisis of 1929. So, in a sense, Hitler had to be considered for the role of Chancellor, of Prime Minister. But the final factor, factor 3, this is where it gets more subtle and more complex. Because actually Hitler, in the end, is helped into power by powerful figures within the Weimar Republic itself, just when his support was actually falling in Germany, and the Weimar Republic and Germany was experiencing some economic recovery. So we're going to look at these three factors and do some research on the evidence and the explanation that would support each of these factors. So on to the next slide. So this is the first of our tasks today. You obviously need to get hold of your essential information booklet. You can see an image of that on screen. You need to turn to page 16 because that has the worksheet that we're going to be using in this session. And the key at the moment is blank. What you need to do is find yourself 6 colours, hopefully you'll have them, or 6 codes that you could apply to your key, and just spend a moment just creating a color-coded key. So if you pause the video just whilst you do that. Now this is a central task for today, and it's a research activity, because we've got to look for evidence of the factors that led to Hitler's appointment as Chancellor. So if you remember, we've argued that there are 3 factors that lead to Hitler's appointment as Chancellor. Number 1, the failings of the Weimar Republic and democracy being undermined. Number 2, how popular the Nazis become, and therefore Hitler has to be considered for the role of Chancellor or Prime Minister. And number 3, finally, the evidence that actually, in the end, Hitler is helped into power. He's helped to achieve the position of Chancellor by powerful figures within the Weimar Republic. So what you need to do is read each section carefully, beginning with November 1929, and with the points in the key in mind, you've got to read the section, for example, on November 1929, and decide whether that information can be color-coded as the actions of President Hindenburg in undermining democracy? Are there any points in there that might match with that? Are there any points that might match with the Weimar government becoming unpopular? Are there any points that might match Hitler's actions and the growing popularity? And so on. So you need to read each section carefully and complete the research. So as you go through the timeline, you'll find hopefully that you're color coding a lot and building up evidence to support these three factors. So pause the video, turn to your work booklet and carefully read through, annotating as you go along. It might be useful because the key that you've created is only on one side of the sheet, just to take a photograph of that key so you've got it on your phone or your iPad, so you don't need to keep turning over to check on your color codes and your key. Okay, so pause the video and complete that task, please. Okay, so we all need to make sure that our research is consistent and our research is accurate. So what you've got here, in a sense, are the answers. So remember, we've got three factors. Factor 1, the failure of the Weimar Republic in dealing with the Depression. Factor 2, Hitler and the appeal of the Nazis meant that he had to be considered for the role of Chancellor. And Factor 3, actually in the end, Hitler is helped into power. So the yellow and red pieces of information that you can see highlighted on the timeline, they match Factor 1. The blue and the green, they actually link to Factor 2, and obviously Factor 3 is the brown stroke orange colour. So just check and make any corrections on your timeline, just to check that you've got all the information color coded or annotated correctly, so you know which information belongs where. Once you've done that, that ends today's research activity. In the next lesson, we'll work with this activity and sort it and get some notes done in our book. Thank you very much.